I've done a lot of bike touring, from trips down both coasts of the United States to local rides in and around the Northeast. I've covered a lot of ground by bike. Maybe you want to do some bike touring too, but you're not sure what to expect. Everyone was like that once. So here's some advice I would give myself if I could do it over again. Number 1, bring less. My first time touring, I brought way too much stuff, and I ended up losing half of it on the road anyway. I packed 4 panniers and a backpack with stuff. I ended up not using or just losing a lot of the stuff I brought, like deodorant, boots, thermoses, a tarp, books, and food containers. So my advice for you is list all the stuff you think you might need in every situation, and then think about what you'll actually use most days. Try to cut your list down to half of the things you think you'll need, or as close to half as you can get. Usually other people will let you use towels, so maybe bring a small microfiber towel if anything. Carrying less means you'll strain less and reach places faster too. Number 2, stop more. When I'm on the road, I try to have 1 or 2 days out of the week as an off day to explore the city I'm in if it's interesting or if I have a place to stay. But ideally, I would say you should stop even longer. One reason is that you're touring, so you're already far from home in a place that you don't know if you'll ever be able to get to again. And the other reason is that being on the road is exhausting, so it's better to have time to rest. If I could do it again, I would go slower, stop more to take photos, or just rest at vistas, because there's nothing like stopping and absorbing everything that's around you.
Super cloudy day, a little foggy. I'm gonna look for a spot to get breakfast. I don't feel like making my own breakfast. I feel like having someone make me pancakes.
Number 3, every day is hard. The physical and mental toll of touring really strains you. Biking 60 miles a day is already a lot, and if you're carrying a ton of stuff, it's going to be more exhausting. You might spend literal days going only uphill, crawling at 2 miles an hour, and imagine what that does to you mentally. In fact, just by the laws of gravity, you'll spend more time going uphill than downhill. By the laws of physics, you'll spend more time in a headwind than a tailwind. All of that added up after days and days physically exhausts you and mentally beats you down as well. I needed to have about 4,000 calories a day and at least 10 hours of sleep every night when I was touring, so be prepared for that.
It's high in calories, high in fat, high in protein.
Number 4, nights are cold. Seriously, nights everywhere and anywhere can get cold. The exception is if you're in a more temperate climate like the east or west coast, or if you're in some drier climates, but night everywhere generally gets cold because you stop moving and you're around during the coldest part of the day, sunrise. So make sure to layer up super warm before bed, with thermals and gloves and maybe a mask over your face, because it will get really chilly, especially with moisture in the morning rolling in and making it even colder.
So that's what's been scaring me lately, just these rats running around, and it does kind of scare me more than it should, honestly.
Number 5, it's not expensive. People often see bike touring as something prohibitively expensive, but it doesn't have to be. I ended up renting out my room to someone while I left, and spent about $1,000 per month on food, repairs, and other expenses, and even that's on the higher end. I'm sure I could have cut it down by a third or even half with better budgeting. The most expensive thing would be lodging, but so long as you're not picky about where you stay camp-wise, or you use a site like Warm Showers, you can save a lot on the costs of touring. You can also tour using any kind of bike, but keep in mind that some will be much easier or harder to use, and you may have to adjust your schedule accordingly. Number 6, bring a tent. Bugs around you make life a living hell. Rain is impossible to sleep in. Tents also insulate you that few degrees more and add an extra inch of comfort for a much better experience. If you can find a lightweight tent, I would say it's worth setting one up. Number 7, learn to change a tube. This is the most important and common repair you'll have to do. Bring the basics: wrench, Allen key set, those tube opener thingies, pump, and spare tubes. Every other mechanical problem you can kind of figure out on your own while you're on the road, but this is the one that you want at least a few months of practice with first, so you can do it routinely and effortlessly when it inevitably comes to it, because chances are good you're not going to be near a bike shop when it happens.
Jeez, dude.
Number 8, be ready for change. Obviously, plan the most interesting route you can, or whatever you're the most curious about, but take into account the suggestions of locals who will know more than you, and be ready to change your route. Chances are they'll recommend something better. The scenic route is always more rewarding than the fastest one.
And here we've hit the slums of Malibu, the favelas. This is where all the B-list actors live. All kinds of sketchy shit goes on here in the Malibu ghetto.
Number 9, plan your campsites in advance. There is nothing more stressful than biking in the dark trying to find a tucked away spot to duck into. Make sure you know at least within a few hours before the sun sets where you generally want to be camped out and set up there. Number 10, North America is a food desert. If you live in a city or the suburbs, your access to food is pretty good, but chances are a lot of the places you pass by will be gas stations and fast food chains with the most shitty processed foods that will make you feel really unhealthy eating it. That's another reason I recommend not being on the road for too long. Aside from the fact that it might not be as fun after a while, all the foods you eat at random stops on the road are not going to be good for you long term.
My message is positive forward motion. It's all about keep up the positive forward motion no matter how small your step is at the time. Keep moving forward.
You sound like a child of the West Coast. I think you've been fully indoctrinated.